look at the attention. Are there any ideas you can think of that we didn't talk about here that would help either gain attention or maintain it in a class, online or face-to-face, that we haven't discussed yet? Because I feel like I was kind of flying through that to get through our time, but
maybe developing from the get-go, from the very beginning, a consensus that this is the big picture and this is what's in it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if they see that big picture, then they know, then you can break it down to the little steps that they have to take along the way.
I think that applies to the whole ARCS model, what you just said.
But if you miss that big picture, like I'm finding students that miss my first class don't get that. They don't understand that.
Yeah.
What we're going for and what the objectives really are, even though they're reiterated along the way, point by point. It's just a way of getting their attention that this is what the outcome can be if they stick to the track, if they stay on the schedule.
I like that.
Yeah. I think also when you want to get attention of your students, I think it's important to cater to all the different learning styles.
Yes.
Because you can get somebody's attention maybe via one method, but the rest of the gang may not be interested.
Sure.
You may not get their attention. So, getting different learning styles. Some people are visual learners. If you just tell them a joke, they might not get it.
Right.
So they might not get their
Especially if you're like me, don't tell jokes very well. So,
that's my point. That maybe use different methodologies, maybe multimodal attention getters that will get them.
Yeah.
Maybe a video, and then the next class meeting on a different topic, on a different chapter, try something else.
And which is a good point. It's not just the very first class meeting you have to get their attention. It's every class, every time they log into that online class, every time they come to your face-to-face, you can try to get their attention. I use the course homepage a lot in my online classes to try to, and I change it, frequently to try to get, oh, look, it's a new post here, here's something else, and try to figure out a way to get their attention. Because if they come in, it's always the same thing they see initially, they're going to be bored with that. How do you make it relevant to their needs, interests, and motives? Whatever you're doing.
Easy for anatomy.
Yeah.
Because it's them.
For me, anatomy and physiology is the most interesting thing you could ever study. But for some people, it's not. I know
It
people.
wasn't for me.
Really? No, I love those things. But some people love computers, and but for me, not so much. So it might be what their interests already are. But if it's not that, how do you make it relevant to them? I think what you said earlier too is good. Try to I'm not touting my next workshop, y'all, or anything, but but next Thursday I'm going to be talking about the ADDIE model, and the A for the ADDIE model is analyze your learners, and that's one of the things we're talking about. That is, what kind of learners do you have? What are their learning styles? What are their personalities? What are their backgrounds? And we'll talk about that a little bit then. But that's sort of like this: who are your learners and what's relevant to them.
And recognizing what they bring to the table.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes they don't recognize it in themselves, but if you pair them with somebody or put them in a group that can recognize it, and then they can uncover it together. And so you'll find that they may be motivated to do things for their group or their partner that they wouldn't do for you.
Right.
Or they wouldn't do for themselves.
Yeah.
Just, it's a way of responding.
There is nothing better than helping a student discover something about themselves they didn't know, their potential in something. Like, wow, the aha moment. That's what makes teaching the most rewarding thing ever, I think, is when you help a student go, oh my goodness, I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know I knew that, or I could help people do that. That's great. That also goes to the next one with confidence. You better believe it.
It's a step in that direction.
Yeah. When they go to college, it's not just to get a degree, it's to improve their confidence and make them a full person, and to see what potential they have to offer the world, and that's something that we're talking about there with that. And that also helps with the last one, satisfaction. They, again, with that last page for the resume writing, you can give them a certificate for passing the class, you can give them feedback, good job, but I think sometimes the satisfaction is not something you can hand them. It's not a grade. It's, wow, that was a really cool class. I learned so much in there. They tell all their friends, take that class. That's when you know that they've been satisfied with what they got out of it.
Mine is when they come back from taking their kids to the doctor and they say, I knew what he was talking about. Yes. That's exciting.
Quick comment about confidence. I hear a lot from all of your students in my office, of course.
Uh-oh.
No, it's mostly good. The one thing I would ask you all to do more maybe in the very beginning part of the semester, maybe the first class, maybe first 2 classes, that again, the need that students, what I hear is, from a confidence perspective, is that after even the second or third test, a lot of them, and it's not necessarily the teacher's fault, but a lot of them will come back and tell me, well, I don't know how to take her tests or his tests. He's covering the class lecturing this way, and on the test he's totally this way.
Yeah, I hear that a lot
So
too.
I hear you.
I think the confidence building can begin in the very first class meeting if you can teach them the basics of like the learning period. Like if you take notes, you can only take 5% and so forth and so on. And on the top of the chain, of course, is if you teach others, and you take 80% of the learning.
Right.
So maybe you can, I think the challenge is, or to build confidence to students, is you can, as a teacher, tell them how do they learn your subject better. How do they study for anatomy and physiology,
Right.
as opposed to college algebra or philosophy or computer, English, or public speaking, because as you know, these are different disciplines and you learn these things in different ways. The brain learns this kind of discipline different ways. So if you can tell them how do they do better to begin with,
Right.
how do they do better in your class and in this subject matter? How do you study English?
Yeah.
How do you study?
Maybe give them
Best
an
way?
extra credit 10-point test that's
Sure, yeah.
the same way you would give a test. Because I do a
think that's
variety
the
of
best confidence
tests.
builder.
Yeah.
And I think this goes along with that. Early on, if you take a test and it sinks you for the rest of the semester, it's not going to build your confidence and not going to be very satisfied. And you're going to give up. Students will. So they have to be, there needs to be a way worked in where that nothing along the way is going to torpedo
Right.
your grade unless you just keep it up.
Right,
You know?
yeah.
So-
The first test shouldn't do it, yeah.
We've got a lot of challenges for the next.
But that's another reason why we need to have more writing assignments to give them more practice. You know, we can't shy away from that.
More projects, more, presentations.
Yeah.
More papers. And these skills are not they're being taught at the high school level, but they're not being driven at the high school level. And there's a big difference.
Difference, yeah.
And you will find that in those upper, like the gifted programs where they're really pushing. You've got to have a project. It's got to have meaning. It's got to have purpose. But for the rank and file, for 80% of all of us that went through that system, just a small.
Well, I think that's our role here at community college. We're the bridge between what was missed in high school and what they're going to need to know for university. We're the bridge, and that's why whenever a student maybe plagiarizes a paper or something, I don't just throw them out of the class. I sit down and talk to them and explain what this means, and the consequences they could have at a university, and give them another shot. Because I think, it's a little bit of hand-holding. I think back when I was 18, I came from a small town, and I was dumb. I was dumb. So I think just saying, you failed and you're out of here, it's not going to do them any favors. I think we do have to think about how we can encourage them to do more writing and to think and to analyze. And
I think it's just the bottom up kind of thing. We're all, trying to, I think everybody's trying to get there, but it's got to start if that's all they've known for 13 years is how to spit it back to me. How do you teach them at 18, 19 years old?
no, but we have to.
I know, we're trying.
We got to. That's why we're doing all these workshops, right? That's why we're here all these workshops. Well, thanks, y'all. I think this was a very good interactive, conversation. I've learned from y'all too, and that really helps. Thank you.
Great job, officers. Thank you.
I had an exercise early on that people just strain against. They think, okay, this is busy work. No. And then they realize it really isn't